The blend of the Villa Rosso indicated there. Let's see.
Hello.
Hello. Ciao Claudia.
Ciao Silvio. Io non vedo niente.
Come mai?
I mean, I only see a screen that says
Oh yeah.
Zoom to
We
one.
have, yeah, we're gonna go live here in just a second.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just want to make sure I have everything correct.
Okay. It's 7 o'clock, January 14th. Time to zoom into wine. My name is Ian Blackburn. Welcome. Each week we get together, talk about some great wines of the world, what's happening in the wine world, have some featured guests. We've been zooming since 2020, and we choose Wednesday night at 7 o'clock to get together. And we have a full calendar of activities that zoom into wine. We're putting a little bit more energy and effort into our 2026 calendar with some special guests joining us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So, if you're just watching the video, grab a glass of wine and join us. If you've got the tasting kit, which we ship out every week, um, let's get that open and rocking. I'm going to take my filter off the background because today we've got a special guest. And this is Silvio De Silvio. Hi, Silvio. You see who's calling. Welcome.
How's everyone?
Bene, grazie.
Bene, bene.
Hi, great.
There we go. There we go. They wanted to sell me some bank stock or something. So, hi, everybody. Silvio and I are old friends. We've been in the wine business a long time, and Silvio works for the Antinori family. And we've got some more guests to introduce as well. But let's get some wine going first, and then
Yes.
we'll talk. I got my tasting kit over here. You got yours up there. Let's go. I'm going to get wine number one in the glass. We're going to learn a lot about the Antinori family and some of their projects around the world. And let's go here. The world of Antinori. Um, I hope you guys are in a good spot and ready to go. First wine of today. Here we go.
Well, we have a great guest today. We are very lucky to have Claudia Vera joining us from Miami. She's the brand ambassador for Araste Pirke. Araste Pirke is one of the wineries owned by the Antinori family. So she will talk about the wine, just a little picture of the current Antinori organization, Piero on the left, and the three daughters, Albiera, Allegra, and um,
Alessia.
Don't get fired.
Alessia.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a blank.
That's a lot of family members to remember.
Albiera, whose wine is also going to be celebrated tonight, towards the end of the tasting, is the president, and the two other sisters or Spiro daughters are actually vice presidents involved in different capacities with the properties. We have several different properties around the world, and one of the property that we own is down in Chile. So I'm gonna have Claudia talk a little bit about this property in the Maipo Valley near around Santiago.
And Silvio, how long have you been with Antinori now?
8 years.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
In wine lives, that's like forever. It's like a in the wine career. So that's a nice long time. Sylvia and I worked together at Co-Brand many years ago, and he's always been my Italian stallion for different things and activities. So thanks for being here, Silvio. Claudia, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Are you sitting in Miami right now?
Yeah, sitting in Miami with a background of Aras de Pirque behind me.
And how is the weather in Miami?
It's actually very hot right now, but I think we're gonna have a cold front on Friday, and it'll be exciting to see people bringing out their fur coat for a 70-degree weather in Miami.
I don't know about anybody else on this Zoom that's in California, but I would take this weather all year round if I could get it. I love it. What's wrong, Lisa? You want it warmer? No, colder? You really? Okay. Well, I it got up to like 80 degrees today, but like the last week it's been the clearest sky and I don't know if the air is clean, but it looks beautiful. All right, let's rock and roll. We got our first wine in the glass. We're going to Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. Claudia, can you take us through
Yeah,
teach us a little
absolutely.
bit about the what's going on down there? How did Antinori come to be involved in this brand, and then talk us through the Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, of course. So Arase Pirge is a brand that the family has been involved in since 2001. How that came to happen was very interesting because the Antinori family is very passionate about horses, but of course their entire business has always been wine. But they met this family from Chile, the Mate family, who was pretty much the mirror of what Antinori was. So their business was horses, but very passionate about wine. So they came together for this project. It started in 2001, and it started with a wine that we're going to be tasting later today, which is the Albis. The family now fully owns the entire property. And the Sauvignon Blanc that we're going to be tasting today does not come from Maipo Valley, which is where we have the winery, but it comes from Lleida Valley. And it's there's really a reason for that as well because Sauvignon Blanc is a cool climate grape that really does show very well in Lleida Valley. As you know, if you can see Chile here on the map on the left, it's a very narrow country. So pretty much everywhere where you are in Chile, you're going to be close to the coast. But specifically in Lleida Valley, where our vineyards are, we're about 2 to 3 miles away from the beach. So we get a lot of coastal influence from the Pacific Ocean, specifically for Sauvignon Blanc. That really means that there's going to be a lot of beautiful minerality and acidity for the wine. But when I speak about the Alba Clara Sauvignon Blanc, I really like to kind of like contrast it a little bit with Sauvignon Blancs that we are used to drinking. So we are very familiar with drinking Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Um, some people really love Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Some people might think it might be a little bit too acidic and it makes you pucker up very intensely. So I like to draw a little bit of a contrast here and show how the wine from Chile, specifically Sauvignon Blanc, is a little bit more of a food-driven wine, in my opinion, specifically the way that we approach it as well.
Mhm.
Because we're very close to the coast, so we have all that freshness, all that beautiful aromatics that we want to find in Sauvignon Blanc, all those tropical notes, passion fruit, we have pineapple, a little bit of that herbaceousness, but at the same time, it's a little bit more of a chewer, a little bit more chew on the wine. There's a little bit more viscosity. I feel that there's a little bit more of texture there, and it comes from the fact that we spend 3 to 4 months on the lease for this wine. Okay, so crisp, nice acidity, but texture. And that's really beautiful when you start to taste this wine with food. The lees, if you're familiar, I'm sure you've heard before, but it's the particles that break down during fermentation, and that gives a little bit nice of medium weight palate to the wine. The thing that I think is also very distinctive of Chile, and we can find it through some of the wines that we're going to be tasting today, but it's very nice in the Sauvignon Blanc, is the spiciness, is that Latin spice. I'm from Venezuela, so I'm Latin, and I pick up on these things, flavors that have a little bit of heat to them. It's hard to find a white wine that will have a little bit of like that spice to it. I find a little bit of jalapeno on this wine specifically, and that's something that's very distinctive of Chile. And I think you can be very playful with that when it comes to food. Specifically for Chile, everything that's with seafood. If you pair this Sauvignon Blanc with ceviche, it's just going to be incredible. The winemaker for Aracipirque, her name is Cecilia Guzman. She's very in tune with the style of Antinori from, all that craftsmanship that Antinori has been, crafting for over 600 years. Wines that are very restrained, very, very geared to elegance and finesse rather than intensity and power. So we don't want wines that are just going to, you have a one glass and like it's punching you in the face. We want wines that are elegant and that you can enjoy with food. And the wines from Aracipirque do exactly that.
This
The
Sauvignon Blanc is like I mean, if we were studying for the Master of Wine and they gave this to us as a blind wine, I'd hope I'd nail it as chili because
Yeah,
this wine has that signature saltiness and
yeah.
the jalapeno right behind it. It literally makes my mouth water just even smelling it. And it's super clean. By the way, the first slide on this wine said it was a 2012, and that wouldn't be recommended. We
Correct.
we
I
made a
was gonna
mistake there.
mention.
I couldn't change it, but the wine is actually 2023 and in great shape, great balance, wonderful condition. There's a definite horse theme throughout all of the labels, the name. What is that story?
So, Aracipirque so Aras in Spanish means thoroughbred farm.
Okay.
And Pirque is actually the town where we're located. So Aras de Pirque is actually the oldest and one of the most well-known thoroughbred farms in Chile. If I'm not mistaken, one of the wines that we're tasting today, the Galantas, is actually a horse that won the Kentucky Derby, and it came from this thoroughbred farm.
Wow.
So now, if you go to Aracipirque, everything is themed around, horses, equestrian. Um, we no longer have we're not part of the thoroughbred farm, but if you go to Aracipirque, you will see a lot of horses around. So it's very well known for that, and we decided to pay homage to the equestrian part of the story of the land by including them on the labels. And the name Alba Clara, it's the word alba in Italian is sunrise, and then clara means like clear. So this is just like a clear, beautiful sunrise in a bottle. So it's a beautiful wine, and I encourage you to taste it with a beautiful ceviche because the spices from the ceviche and the spices that you find in this wine just play beautifully. And I think it's a very food driven and different kind of Sauvignon Blanc than what we're used to, that we see every day from New Zealand.
I take a sea scallop and I slice it into coins like a day boat scallop. I put it across the plate. I take some citrus, some salt, some pepper, and really thin slices of jalapeno.
Yes.
And you eat that with grilled bread. Oh, a little olive oil. You gotta have a little olive oil on that too.
Sounds like a plan.
There's a very famous thing going around now of people buying like the tin sardines
Yeah.
and kind of like putting a paper towel right on top and lighting it on fire
Hmm.
and then inside the tin. So like the olive oil and all the, everything, the brininess of the sardines kind of like smokes a little bit. And then I think that would be a very beautiful thing to try if you want to do the viral sardine tin can with
Ah,
albahaca.
is this a TikTok thing, Claudia?
I don't have TikTok. I mean, I do have it, but I never use it. But I see the things that are famous on TikTok filter into Instagram. So I've seen it and it looks very good. I'm interested in trying it, and I think it would be great with a wine like this.
Sounds like a show. I'd probably set my place on fire if I did that, but um, Sauvignon Blanc, always textbook descriptors, but then you'll overlay the place on Sauvignon Blanc, and that's what really shines through. Gooseberries, black currant leaves. I'm not sure how many of you have spent time smelling those, but Um, Often grapefruit, melon, those type of things here, and really you get this wonderful, almost briny character in the front of this wine. I think it's quite refreshing and a signature wine for Chile for sure. I think Sauvignon Blanc really made a huge impression in the American market from Chile, and it continues to really surprise people because this wine's $15, and there's just very few values that can perform like this. One of the least expensive wines on the website. It's and you can be very proud of this wine. It's not you're not going to find it everywhere. It's
Sure.
it's a quality wine, got very good marks, won some medals, and we just tasted it here. It's really good. So thank you guys for tasting it with us.
And I also would add that the Albaclar is a great expression of a Sauvignon Blanc because it kind of encapsulates all the traits of Sauvignon Blanc that Ian was mentioning. But I would add these grassy, wet grass smells combined with the gooseberry as really the main traits of a Sauvignon Blanc. So you're really tasting a textbook expression of the grape.
Mhm.
If I were a som doing blind tasting, I would definitely put in the blind tasting because this is probably the best way to understand the Sauvignon Blanc is maybe compare this to a Sancerre, but you will see that the common denominator is really these two main elements in the wine.
Beautiful. We're going to move on to our Chardonnay. We'll be back to you in a moment, in a little bit there, Claudia. You got a
Yeah, of course, no problem. I'll be here.
Okay, we got a couple of Italians to taste through, and I would be lying if I didn't say that this if I one of the first wine that maybe ironically the first wine that I think of from Antinori is this one. I love blowing people's mind with this wine. I put it in blind tastings all the time next to $400 bottles of Burgundy, and it's a fantastic wine. It's not 100% Chardonnay, but pretty close, and comes from Umbria.
Yeah, Orvieto specifically.
Yeah, Orvieto.
Yeah.
Tell us about. Oh, wait. Would you want to tell us a story about the castle, or do you want to wait for that?
Well, I'll wait for that.
Okay. Okay.
But let's talk about the. Well, first of all, I want to thank Claudia for being here at 10 o'clock in the evening when she
That's
should
right.
be watching TV, some live shows, whatever you watch, Claudia. All good. So Cervaro, first and foremost, I want to say this, is the most awarded wine of Italy of all time. And when I say this, is because the Italian press was so impressed when the first vintage was released, being a wine for the first time made in Italy that could age for longer than, let's say, 5 years. Traditional Italian wines, white wines, could not age more than 3, 4 years. We get oxidized almost immediately. There was no interest in really by Italian consumers at the time to drink wines that were not ultra fresh and ready for consumption. So Cervaro actually came about because of a trip that Piero Antinori took with our chief winemaker Enzo Cottarella to France back in the early 80s. They went to Vinexpo in Bordeaux. On the way back to Florence, they stopped in Nice and they look at the wine list. There were all these Burgundies which they were not really familiar with because you have to understand back then there was no internet. The only way to learn about the French wine was to read the French book, which of course none of the Antinoris or the winemaker knew about. Wine Spectator at the time was just a 2-page publication. So
Pamphlet.
it was a pamphlet. So I mean, if you really wanted to learn about the French wines, you had to go to France. And on the way back, they took advantage of their dinner stop and they decided to have a Burgundy wine. And what was suggested at the time is to have a 10 years old Burgundy, which immediately they thought would be dead. So they kind of objected to the idea of drinking a 10 years old Burgundy. But under the insistence of their guest, they drank this wine that was actually Corton Charlemagne, and they were completely impressed by the quality of the wine. So that kind of put the bug in Piero's mind to produce a Chardonnay using, for the first time, a malolactic fermentation for white wines, because malolactic was introduced in Italy not very early. In fact, the first examples of malolactic fermentation for red wines are dated basically the beginning of the 20th century. So it's kind of a process that was imported by the French from France, and never really applied to white wine. So they start using this process, the malolactic fermentation, kind of soften the acidity in the wine. I'm not going to go into the technical details. And then the use of barrique, which Piero Antinori already has some little experience, because the barrique for the first time was used for making the Tignanello, our Super Tuscan. So fast forward, 1986, the first vintage of Cervaro is introduced in the market, and then a few years later, the press started, getting excited about the fact that this wine actually improved with age instead of getting worse with age, and started bragging about this wine to the point now that has more awards from the Italian press than any other wine, including reds from Italy. It's kind of interesting, but also don't forget, as far as the white wines, Italy does not have the competition that red wines have. So I wouldn't say it's easy to get awards on white wines, but it's definitely much easier than having great awards for making a red. The story that I wanted to mention, which is a fun story, the castle. I don't know if we should have a picture of the castle. I think castle. Yeah, right there. Here we go. And this beautiful castle actually came about because of a trip that Piero's father, Niccolo Antinori, did with his sales manager, whose name was Umberto Cornia. Not a name to remember, but I just, being in sales, I love to remember his name because he was a genius. So what happened in this trip, they had a trip to Naples, which is known for making dishes that are fish-based. And of course, they were introducing their Chiantis, and every single restaurateur would say, okay, the wines are fantastic, no complaints about the reds, but do you have any white wine? And now let's not forget that Tuscany is not known as a white wine region. The only white wine produced in Tuscany at the time was Vernaccia, which is pretty much mediocre wine. So Umberto Cornia, being a sales guy, start say, sure, we have a white wine. How much you want? How many cases? We'll ship you white wines. And they make every single stop, every single Napolitan restaurateur would ask for white wines, and they would keep getting orders. So you have to remember at the time, just the fact that somebody from the winery was visiting a restaurant was already a big deal. So they would buy out of respect, of course, and gratitude. And by the end of the day, they sold almost 100 cases of white wine. So in the car on the way back, this is the story that I was told by Piero Antinori himself. Niccolò's father turns to Umberto and he says, Piero's father, Niccolò, turns to Umberto and he says, dear Umberto, I'm very glad that we sold almost 100 cases, but where are we going to find the wine? And Umberto turns to Niccolò and he says, dear Niccolò, my job is to sell the wine. Your job is to find the wine. So
they didn't make a white wine. They had to go back and make a white wine to fill these orders.
So you have to now remember that the only great white wine region of central Italy at the time was Orvieto. And they went to Orvieto and they spot this castle in 1938, which was in complete disarray. Now, of course, has been rebuilt. But what really mattered for the Antinori family was the fact that I was surrounded by vineyards of Orvieto wines. And so they got the property, they slowly rebuilt the castle, and then fast forward from 1940, which was the year when the castle was purchased, to 1980, I think the purchase of the castle was 1984. They eventually introduced a Chardonnay into their selection of wine. There is a fun fact that when actually they inherited the vineyards, there were rows of Cabernet Franc and Merlot planted at Castello della Sala, which of course at the time they were removed because they were not deemed to be interesting for the region. But the fact that somebody in the castle that was actually a previous owner was the church, so someone from the church actually planted some Cabernet and Merlot in the property.
Are there like guest rooms at that castle?
There are guest room only for the Antinori families, correct.
Do we know anybody that can get us a room
You
there?
knock at the door, give me a call on my cell phone, I'll make sure they open the door for you.
I want to stay at the castle. So I wanted to talk about the nose of this wine. I think it's so savory. It's got this kind of perfect brown butter,
Yep.
sage kind of thing going on. And I get lost in the nose. I already drank mine, so I'm gonna talk about it now. But isn't it delicious?
And I
So
think,
good.
yeah, I think also these buttery and bread crust notes that are very typical of the Chardonnay really develop with time. If you happen to get some Cervaro today and store it for maybe 10 years, you will be rewarded with an incredible array of flavors, but you're going to have these really strong bread crust notes. They're going to basically jump out of the glass and hit your nose. And it's going to make a huge impression with whoever you share the wine with. But I also want to make sure that you understand you're tasting a great white wine, not just from Italy, but from around the world. Little fun fact on the side, Piero Antinori goes to a tasting in London in 1989, and is sharing, and it was a tasting of all Chardonnays from around the world, organized by Decanter Magazine. At the end of the tasting, all the producers go around they go to a restaurant and they all sit around the table, and by mistake, a Burgundy producer picks up a bottle of Cervaro and pours it to Piero Antinori, saying, "Now this is a great white wine from France." And Piero answered, "Well, that's actually my Italian wine." So
there it is. I see 15% Grechetto.
correct.
What other wines feature Grechetto?
So Grechetto is the local grape from Umbria. Greco is the translation of Greek. So Grechetto refers to the grape that was brought in by the first colonizers of Italy, were the Greeks. And they were the first one to actually plant the vineyards in southern and central Italy. And throughout the centuries, this grape was planted by the Greeks, basically acquired the official name of Grechetto. Grechetto is put into the Chardonnay for two reasons. One is very bright grape. It makes very acidic grape, so kind of lift the wine, especially considering that the Chardonnay goes through malolactic fermentation, partial malolactic fermentation. So you want to give a little bit of a lift, but it's really also a signature by the Antinori family of a wine that is made in Umbria, because we want to make sure that there is also a sense of place. And Chardonnay is planted in Umbria as opposed to any other grape, such as a Pinot Grigio, for example, because Chardonnay as a grape is probably the best grape to express terroir. So you can have, that's the reason why actually Chardonnay is planted all over the world. You can go to Margaret River in Australia. It makes great Chardonnay that tastes like Margaret River. You go obviously to Burgundy, you go to Santa Rita Hills, they taste like Santa Barbara wines. And this is really a great expression of an Italian Chardonnay. What does that mean? That when you taste it, yes, you taste a great Chardonnay, but you also smell Italy, right? And that's what this wine is all about.
And you feel it too. You feel Italy with that long tail of acidity.
Right.
Thomas asked the question what Grechetto does to the wine.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it adds a lift in the acidity and a little bit of aromatic notes.
Right.
Okay, but at the end of the day, I have to say, Tom, that the reason why initially it was put into the blend was not really for winemaking reasons, but was more like a signature of saying this is a Chardonnay, but yet is an Umbrian Chardonnay. So let's not forget about our roots, where we come from, and what we're trying to do here.
It's not because they needed 15% more to make that first 100 cases.
Well, we have a marketing division that is very good in telling the story, and so is Piero himself. He's a good marketer. So that's the story we got from Piero. So,
I've heard that
and
story
I take it
for
as
years,
the official version of it.
This how long has Renzo been the winemaker? Is he like the is he still the winemaker?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
he's the chief winemaker. Has been with the company since 1978.
Damn.
So we are reaching 60 vintages of harvests or vintages.
Mm.
But the interesting thing and the fun, I would say fun, but also impressive fact about Renzo, he is the only CEO of any winery of our size around the world is actually a winemaker. So you have to understand that we are pretty considered a big winery for Italian standards, not for American standards, but definitely for Italian standards. And if you look at all the wineries that make the same amount of wine that we make, and let's not forget we have 15 different estates around the world, they are all financial officers, right? They are all people with some financial background. Their goal is to make the owners happy on the short term. A winemaker never think about the short term. At least has a 20 years in his mind, if not 30. When you plant a vineyard, you know that you're making investment for the next 30 years without even knowing what the trend is going to be in 30 years. So it's a big, big gamble. But you're paid back by planting and making sure that at the end of the day, you are in full control of the quality. And most importantly, you also control the price. So the price fluctuation doesn't really influence our decisions because we do actually own the land. So all the decisions are actually made with one single goal, quality, and that's it. We are not pressed by any other financial obligation. We don't have banks knocking on our door, and that allows us really to concentrate on what we do best, making wine.
Okay.
And I think they always, I mean, the family in general, and including Renzo, they always introduce themselves first and foremost as farmers rather than, as Silvia was mentioning, like business people. They're very connected to the land in that sense.
Well, this is a 97 pointer, so the secret's out, and it's been featured in the cover of the Wine Spectator multiple times. But it is kind of relegated to only being found in great Italian restaurants and maybe a little bit of top retail type of places. So it's still pretty special. And I love carrying the wine. We sell it very quickly. It does sell out. We just got the 23 vintage into our house and really a beautiful wine. Look at this castle. I want to stay there. We got to work on that.
I'll take you there.
Okay. 79.95 it's an incredible wine for the price. Compare it to Burgundy, compare it to even Margaret River Chardonnay, which I love. I mean, this thing just rivals everything. $80 is like the price of a Santa Rita Hills Chardonnay now, and this thing is just a juggernaut and will age beautifully, as Silvio has told us. All right, we move into our first red. Silvio, can you grab that number 3 for me?
Yes, let's compare it.
And this is a benchmark wine for the House of Antinori. Tell us a little bit about this wine, because I remember this used to be called Chianti, right?
So there is a story behind it because, of course, Villa Antinori Chianti Classico Riserva is the bread and butter of the Antinori family. The Villa Antinori Chianti Classico Riserva until 2001 was actually a wine produced by buying up to 40% of grapes. In the late 90s, the Antinori family, specifically Piero, decided that every single wine with the Antinori name would come from estate-grown grapes. Now, you have to consider that this was the number one selling wine, not the Villa Rosso that we have here today, but the Chianti Classico Riserva. And he made the incredible decision, very risky decision, to take out the wine from the market. And he would, with the idea of reintroducing the Villa Chianti Classico when he would actually be able to guarantee to his customers that the wine would be 100% estate. So for 10 years, and imagine this, production of that wine was 60,000 cases times 10 years when it was eventually reintroduced as a state-grown wine, times 12 bottles. And at the time, it was selling for 10 it was liras at the time, but around $10. So imagine 60,000 times 10 years times $10 for 12 bottles. So we are talking about $6 million of lost revenue for the winery. So this is the kind of a gamble that the Antinori family decided to take. And it was paid off because obviously the message to the consumers like yourself is that if you buy a bottle of Antinori, it's going to be only from our grapes. In the meantime, because of the fact that we own all these estates around Tuscany, the Antinori family decided to kind of reintroduce a wine that there was already in existence, which was called Gran Vino del Chianti. And because of the new laws that now regulate wine production in Italy, you could not call this red wine Chianti, because it was a blend of different grapes grown in our estate, but some of the grapes were non-traditional grapes, namely Merlot, Cabernet, Syrah. So Piero decided to just create a Rosso, in other words, create a Super Tuscan in a way that would, for those 10 years, kind of replace the Chianti Classico Riserva. It was so successful that the winery decided to keep it. After those 10 years without the Chianti Classico, the Villarosso actually became so successful because imagine this, is the grapes that don't make it the top wines from every single estate. So it's kind of like what we call pasticcio della nonna. Pasticcio della nonna is the pastry of grandmother's pastry that the next day is better than when it comes out from the stove. So she reheats the pastry and the cake, and it's made with all the leftovers ingredients, right?
Mhm.
And these leftover ingredients are put together after a couple of days. It tastes wonderful. And it's pretty much the same idea. It's like a blend of different grapes coming from our top estates. So in Italy, the Villa Rosso is considered the best value wine that any restaurant can find because all the restaurateurs in Italy know about the provenance of the grapes. Additionally, I have to say that the Villa Rosso has been named best value by Wine Spectator multiple times. So it's not just something that the Italians know about, but also the American press recognize. I want to share with you a little fun fact that the Villa Rosso was actually called the Gran Vino del Chianti, in other words, Great Wine of Chianti, whose first production was 1928 and already blended the Cabernet with Sauvignon Blanc. Even though the official
Sangiovese.
Sangiovese Cabernet, 1928. So even though the official introduction of the concept of Super Tuscan came with the production of Sassicaia, in reality, we were already, as Antinori, making Super Tuscan back in 1928. Mm. So we are almost 100 years of Super Tuscan winemakers, you know.
Hey, Silvio, I was checking your math. He didn't lose $6 million. He lost $72 million.
Oh, 72. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
So
I think there's also like a very cool story on the Villa Antinori Rosso, and Silvio is the Antinori encyclopedia, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But as I understand from the book that Piero wrote, the Villa Antinori Rosso was the first wine out of Tuscany in a Bordeaux bottle.
Oh, correct. Yes.
Everything before the Villa Antinori Rosso, it was in the flask, in the one that you see from the Godfather film, with the hay in the bottom. And basically, again, I always say that Antinori is probably one of the few Italian families that will admit to being inspired by the French. But when they went to France, they would see that the bottles were already these beautiful Bordeaux bottles. It looked like jewelry, the way that they were displayed. And they had the labels that said Chateau Margaux, Chateau Brion, and they said, okay, we don't have chateaus in Italy, but we have villas. And then that's why the wine is also named Villa Antinori, and it has the beautiful Antinori Villa on the label, which has been basically the same label since almost 100 years ago. So that's also a very fun story to share.
I want to tell you guys, at Merchant of Wine, when I buy for the store, there's very few wines that check the boxes that this one checks. First of all, this wine is very well distributed. You're going to find it in a lot of great restaurants and a lot of great retail. So this is kind of like the exception to my rule, but the wine's got to be good enough. And this wine's always so good and so delicious for the price. I'm loving this one here. Do you guys know what the current blend is on this wine?
Yeah, it's mainly Sangiovese, 60%, and the rest of the blend, as you can see here, is Cabernet, Merlot, and Syrah. Now, Syrah is actually a very popular grape in Cortona. Cortona is bordering with Montepulciano, and our property in Montepulciano overlaps over the Cortona appellation, where we actually plant Syrah, which is recognized by the Italian law as a local grape. And I know some people say, how can you call Syrah a local grape? Well, let me tell you something. Cabernet, as a grape, has been planted in Tuscany since the 1700s. So we are talking about 300 something years of history of Cabernet planted in Tuscany. Syrah, very close. These international, what we call international varieties, were actually French varieties, which were planted in Tuscany because of the connection that the Medici family had with the house of the King of France. Caterina de' Medici married Henry IV. She introduced a lot of things, a lot of food into to France, and of course she learned a lot about the French wine. She learned a lot about winemaking to the extent that through this connection, she convinced the King of Florence to, which were his family, to bring in French varieties and planting them in Tuscany.
92 points. Walnuts, chocolate, black cherries, tobacco. And I love the balance of it. I love the mouth feel, the richness, the weight, everything about it. Just really delicious. 22.95. It's a great go-to night. You got a pizza oven. You've got burgers. I love this wine with burgers. I love it with lasagna. I just think it's like a easy one to pull, and you're gonna love it. 92 points. I think it's a great score for this very balanced, really like ambassador wine. And and by the way, when I used to sell this wine many moons ago, back in the 90s, when I worked for RNDC, and I think it was there the year that they moved from being called Villa Antinori, with it being Chianti,
Mm-hmm.
to not being a Chianti anymore. And I remember having to introduce that to all the Italian restaurants, and it was a little choppy.
Challenging. Well, on the side note, thank you for bringing this up. At Christmas in my home, my grandmother, being actually born and raised in Chianti, always required the Villa Antinori Chianti Classico Riserva to be poured at our table. You have to remember, I don't come from a very wealthy family, so Villa Antinori at the time was considered the Ferrari of Chianti because, as Claudia mentioned, it was one of the first wines to be sold in the Bordeaux bottle. In other words, it was like the ultra luxury expression of a Tuscan wine, where in fact my grandmother grew up drinking from flask. So when the Villa Antinori went from Chianti Classico Riserva to Villa Rosso, because as I said, for 10 years it was taken out from the market, she almost had an heart attack. And guess what? She tried the Villa Rosso. There was kind of like the alternative to the Chianti, and she loved it so much that after that she wanted the Villa Rosso to be poured at home for a Christmas celebration instead of the Chianti Classico. So that's actually a piece of
It changed minds.
nice story that underline what Ian just said, that is a great value wine.
I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. Next week, we've got my greatest wines of 2025. In December, we did like some top wines, a little more value oriented. These are just like bangers from 2025. Check out the wine list. Join me. There's only a couple spots left. But these are really fun, fleshy, big, dynamic wines from all over the world. and I'd love you to join me for that. We've got our Zooms scheduled. We're doing about two a month. Some months we'll have three, just so we can slow it down a little bit and make the quality a little higher. Um, Not everything is going to be expensive, but higher quality production on our side. And also, I'm going to do, I'm going to scatter a few free Zooms throughout the year as well. And you guys know that we also have a new Zoom membership that get rewards you all year round. So you not only get 10% off all the wines, but 10% off all the Zooms, and that's every day. So if you still would like to join the membership, it's still $200. The price does increase February 1st, and would love to have you on board and grow our membership. The idea is that you get all your money back if you spent what a lot of our best customers spent last year. You double your savings. So it's statistically should work out really well for everybody that buys it. We're going to move into our next Titan. This one, number 4, is this is the name of a act like a single property. Is that what it
Correct.
is? Yeah. So Badia Apasiano. I do okay in there?
Yeah, so Badia Passignano is one of the properties that we own in Chianti Classico. Badia actually, in Italian, in English, I mean, means abbey. So Passignano is the name of the village, Passignano, abbey of the town of Passignano.
There's something, if you could see on the label here, it's Chianti Classico, and we're all accustomed to that. The DOCG, the Garantita level, but that Gran Selezione title is fairly new.
Yes.
And that is the highest level of Chianti now. And so this really represents the very, very best in Chianti. And this has been it's when I say new, it's not new. It's probably been around for 15 years.
More than that.
More than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
And because of the quality level, the elevation, price is a little bit more. So it's a slow growth process, but we saw in my top 100 wine review at the beginning of the year how many of these wines are hitting the top 100. And this category continues to take ground. It's a great idea. It takes a long time to convince the world and figure out what that word means. And so, yeah, we're in Chianti Classico. Remember, it's not Classic Chianti. There's a town called Classico.
No, actually, there is no town called Classico. Is we are friends, so I feel take the liberty.
Text me. What did I say?
So Classico is not the town. Chianti is actually the region
Yeah.
that was always known as the best place to grow grapes since the Etruscans, so 3,000 years ago. The became Classico at the time when the Italian government decided to regulate the production of Chianti.
Okay.
And because the Chianti appellation, as you can see on the map, the gray area that surrounds the Chianti Classico is actually Chianti, currently by Italian law. But at the time, Chianti was considered only the heart of what is now Chianti. So the heart of Chianti, historically, was, in fact, is actually the first wine region in the world ever regulated by law, starting in 1716. So in 1716, another de Medici, which was Cosimo de Medici, not Caterina de Medici, but the ancestor of Caterina de Medici, he hired the president of the Winemakers Association of the Kingdom of Florence, was at the time, it was Antonio Antinori. And Antonio Antinori helped design or define the first wine region in the world, which is Chianti. Now known as Chianti Classico, because the idea, the vineyards expanded, a lot of producers started producing Chianti and labeling it Chianti, and when the Italian government got involved, decided to call the historical Chianti Classico.
Okay, because you got Chianti Rafina
Correct.
and Chianti over here near Florence. Right. So this is demarks this part of Chianti.
It demarks the heart of Chianti, which is the historical, what they used to be called basically 300 years ago, Chianti.
Chianti, got it. Yeah. I think we were saying the same thing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
We can laugh at dinner tonight.
So Antinori family, one of the world's oldest, most distinguished wine producers. Where are you guys on that list? Are you the oldest? What is it?
Well, we are not technically the oldest. We are, but not technically because the first documentation of winemaking by the Antinori family is 1150, which 80, sorry, 1180, which put us as being the oldest winemaker in the world. However, according to an unwritten rule, in order to claim uninterrupted ownership of a business, you cannot have more than one generation missing in the progression of generations. And we had a document dated 1180, and the next documentation of the Antinori family is 90 years later. And it's more than one generation. So we basically lost the 90 years prior. So the Antinori family decided to declare the birth year of the family as a wine producer, 1385, which is the year when the Antinori family applied to officially become a commercial winemaker with the Kingdom of Florence. 1385 is the official year, but there is documentation of us making wine prior to that. You also have to remember that paper at the time was a very luxury item, so all the documentation was written in very few pieces of papers. A lot of things got lost, of course, throughout. We are talking about almost 1,000 years, so you can imagine how many of those documents got lost. So unfortunately, we don't have the continuity to claim that, even though we could, if there is something between that allows us to have this continuity.
So you basically what you're saying is you're still new. You're a new brand.
You're a new brand, yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's a look at this.
Badia Passignano.
This is
the Abbey.
Yeah.
When we purchased the Abbey in 1985, we inherited 4 monks by the church. And one of the agreement we had with the church, the family had with the church, was that these monks were asked to stay by the church. The family, of course, agreed to it. They now tend the garden that produced the vegetables that are served in our 2-star Michelin restaurant, which is on the right side of the picture. And it's called.
Can we stay in that castle?
No, only in that case, not even the family can stay because only the monks live there. But we can definitely have a lunch or dinner at the restaurant called the Osteria di Passignano.
I have eaten at.
Oh, you're even there.
Yeah,
okay,
that's very good. All right, so this is 100% Sangiovese from that property, and this spends how much time in wood and all that? What are the rules for Gran Selezione?
So Gran Selezione is the peak of the pyramid. So think of the classification of Chianti as a triangle, right? Where at the bottom you have a Chianti Classico. We call it Dannata, so simple Chianti Classico. The second level of quality, let's call it quality, even though it's more about winemaking requirements, is the Chianti Classico Riserva. The Chianti Classico Dannata requirements is 12 months before release. The Riserva is 24 months before release. And the Gran Selezione is 30 months before release. So 2 years plus 6 months. The requirement also are a little bit different between Chianti Classico Riserva and Gran Selezione, because the Chianti Classico Riserva requires a minimum of 80% Sangiovese and 20% of so-called other grapes, whereas the Gran Selezione requires a minimum 90% Sangiovese and 10% of other grapes.
Let me test this idea in my head too. If it says 2021 and it's Tuscan, you won it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's
How's
you win the lottery on 21. It's
It's
considered one of the great vintages produced.
Right.
And in fact, our Super Tuscan made number 3 in the world with that vintage. So obviously, there is a recognition not only on the wine, but definitely on the vintage.
Sangiovese, amazing grape variety, very age-worthy. A lot of people don't realize how great Chianti can age. I mean, I've had some. What's the oldest Chianti you've ever had?
Well, personally, I have some Chiantis from the 50s, but not from Antinori. Antinori unfortunately lost a whole cellar in the flooding of Florence in 1967.
Oh wow.
So all the bottles that were stored from Antinori going back centuries, believe it or not, were all lost. The flooding basically destroyed the labels, and so the oldest bottles of Antinori available in the market that were purchased by somebody else, not by the Antinori. There were probably some collectors' wines, are dated 1940, 1950. But I personally had the 1950s Chiantis, actually at my grandmother's place, but they were not obviously Antinori wines, so they were not worth mentioning here, I guess.
I see. Well, this one will be great to have, cherish, and watch it mature. I actually think there could be some pretty nice upside with some age to this wine too. I think Gran Selecciones will be elevating in price drastically 10 years from now. I bet you this wine's at least double what it costs right now. Because I do believe in the Gran Selecciones story, and I think it's elevating right now. $69 for one of the best wines in the region, and a beautiful wine. And again, the 2021 is particularly special. I know the 22s are going to be good. 2020 is good, but because it's 21, it's got even a little bit more pull through, and I think this one's going to fly.
And I want to point out very quickly also that you have to think on the fact that Antinori is a Chianti Classico producer. So their best wine needs to, in a way, encapsulate all the philosophy of the Antinori family. And the best wine from Chianti Classico is Badia Passignano. So all the efforts, investments, the quality is put into the making of the Badia Passignano Gran Selezione. That's why it's also Gran Selezione, which, by the way, was a classification that was pushed by Antinori himself, Piero Antinori himself, through the Italian government, because his idea is to carry on the concept of Chianti Classico as being one of the best wine region in the world. And by creating Gran Selezione, kind of push all the other producers to follow the lead and make other Gran Selezione and show to the world that the Chianti Classico is not just what we remember as being a pizzeria wine, but one of the greatest wine in the world.
Well, I love this. What I want you to notice as you taste it too is that tail of acidity is just slashing back and forth in your mouth as 30 seconds later
Still there.
you know this is Chianti, and you know it's Sangiovese, and it's just drilling.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful wines. Okay, we are going back to Chile now, Claudia.
Yeah, fun times.
Thanks.
We're back.
It's now 11 at night for you, so we will we'll be brief, but we move into Cab Franc,
Yeah.
and this has become a really popular variety, um, not only in Chile but also in Argentina. Tell us about this baby, and how did you guys even decide to make a Cab Franc?
Yeah, so it's going to back to what Silvio was saying on the Gran Selezione. I'm not gonna be able to show it well because I have a background. But yeah, you can see it sort of. He's Piero Antinori floating around my face. The issue of Wine Spectator from April of 2025 just shows he speaks about um, Tuscany 2021 vintages being the best in the last 30 years, but that issue also shows uh, an article specifically on Chile, which I always have this magazine with me because it shows also how Chile is becoming such an important country in the wine arena. This year, for the top 100 wines of Wine Spectator, the number one wine was a wine from Chile, which is Don Melchor. It just goes to show how this, countries just growing so much in quality. But interestingly enough, it hasn't really changed in terms of pricing. So I feel like there's a lot of value on Chilean wines. There's a lot of quality, but it's still a wine that's approachable and affordable for everyone. Now, our winery in Maipo Valley, all of the wines that come from Maipo Valley, specifically Maipo Alto, which is where we're at, are 100% organic wines for all of the reds. So they're organic and they're also vegan. It is the only estate of Antinori that is 100% organic. And it's an approach that the family had with this winery ever since they started in 2001. They have an obsession, particularly Piero Antinori and Renzo Cottarella, obsession and a passion for Cabernet Franc. And I think it started also with their exploration of Cabernet Sauvignon in Chianti Classico, and then of course Cabernet Franc being the father grape of Cabernet Sauvignon. So this wine specifically is truly a challenge for the winemakers in Chile because of the oscillation in temperature that we have. We're in Maipo Alto, and Maipo Alto is also recognized as one of the best areas in the world for the production of Cabernet Sauvignon, and by that also Cabernet Franc. So the winery, since it started, if you see there, that's a great picture to show. It's almost divided in like three different levels. So all of the technology from Arastepirque, since it started in 2001, was very new to the area in Chile. So winery has been around for 25 years. In the time that it started, it was not very common to have such a structured way into sustainability, into organic wines. It was not as big of a topic as it is today. So for the Antinori family to do that from the get-go in this winery really makes a difference for the wine in the glass. All of the fermentation is done by gravity, so there's really very little interaction by movement of the grapes from side to side. It's just like all a flow from gravity and the state-of-the-art technology for the red wines that we produce here at Aras de Birke. And this wine is 85% Cabernet Franc and 15% Carmenere for the 2018 vintage. And Cabernet Franc it's known as a grape that has a lot of intensity, a lot of aromatics, a lot of florals, a lot of herbaceousness to it. And for this wine, I truly find it to be my favorite in the portfolio. I think it sings. I think it's the sleeper hit. Very elegant, very restrained, a lot of tobacco notes, something very beautiful, minty notes as well.
Yeah.
And then the Cabernet really like fills the pocket that the Cabernet is sort of maybe missing a little bit, which provides a lot of like that silky, beautiful tannins, and a little bit of that graphite that we find in Carmenere that I find it to be very elegant, specifically from wines of Maipo Alto.
I this wine makes me like I go from I think I'm hungry to I'm starving now because I think of
Yeah.
food immediately when I smell this wine. There's so much savory stuff. I love to cook. I'm smelling like roasted eggplant. I actually would love to do. I have a dish where I use basically sweet potatoes and roasted eggplant and layer them together, and it's just really magical. And I could even maybe put a little bit of a reduced balsamic vinegar with this thing and
Absolutely.
some mint leaves. I think it would like smell like this wine. And so it's really delicious. It's got great volume, and we picked it for the store. We don't carry categorically a huge number of Chilean wines, so I'm very selective, but I love this one. I got to meet the winemaker. I met her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You meet a
That
lot
was
of
her.
people, but you
That
met
was
her
her.
Oh
too.
That
yes,
was her.
because
Yeah.
she went to California last
Yeah,
year.
she was here
Yeah.
recently, and she was going on about this wine, and so I just I totally decided this would be one of the stars of the show. Hope you guys enjoy it. This property is magnificent. Are there guest rooms here? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
There's actually a very small little
Guest house.
house to the guest house to the right
Okay.
of the winery, which has like two rooms. So it's mostly used by family members when they visit. But it's a stunning property, and it's truly a beautiful wine, and the way that the wines are made has a lot of respect for the land. All the vineyards were replanted in 2014. So the next wine that we're tasting as well kind of ties into that because it's the one that has we have the most know-how, and I really find it to be like a very nice contrast to taste the Galantas, and then followed by the Albis.
$30. I think it's a great value, delicious, unique. Lots of that herbal, perazine, bell pepper,
Yeah.
mint. They're all in there, and it's again, it's one of those wines you put it in the glass and you are in Chile. We're gonna finish tonight with the Albis, and this is like the marquee, the head, the
Correct.
Tet wine of the property. And we're fortunate here in California to be able to acquire the 16 vintage. So I wanted to show it. Um, and this will be a good test for our tasting jars because we open this on Monday. So we'll see how these are doing. But I love the wines after a little decantation. Tell us about the name and the beautiful label. What do you got
Yes,
there?
so this one's the first wine that was produced by Aras de Birke, and the name Albis is actually the nickname for Albiera, which is Piero Antinori's eldest daughter. We saw a picture of her earlier in the presentation, and I really like the label. It was designed by a local artist in Chile. Her name is Macarena Ferrer, and it sort of shows the two hemispheres. And it's also the word albis, as I mentioned, with the name Alba Clara, it means sunrise. So it's almost like a little bit of you see both hemispheres there, obviously, kind of like representing Europe and then South America, and then the name albis, which is sunrise. So it also looks like a sun that's kind of like coming out of the land right there. So it's a very beautiful label. It's the one that we've had since day one for this wine, so it hasn't been changed at all. And this is truly like the crew wine for Aras de Pirque, also coming from the Upper Maipo Valley. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Carmener. And as I mentioned before, Maipo Alto, specifically where we're at, is recognized as one of the top places for Cabernet Sauvignon in the world. So this is truly a very distinctive wine, and a very it's a wine that really describes the terroir of where we're in. So 81% Cabernet Sauvignon, 19% Carmener. Again, in this one, you're gonna see that burst of graphite that comes from the Cabernet. It's
100%.
very elegant, and a little bit of flint as well, and cigar box. You have a little bit more of that. We have a little bit more of that know-how with this wine, and it comes from the vineyards that have been replanted for the longest. So it's already 10-year-old vineyards that have a little bit more of complexity in them as well. And it is definitely a wine that has aging potential. And to be honest, when you look at the whole portfolio of Aras de Birge, and we have we have Cabernet Sauvignon, we have Carmener, you have this beautiful Cabernet Franc that we tasted. But the Albis is truly what kind of celebrates the know-how of Antinori when their exploration of Cabernet Sauvignon, and then blended with a grape that was so misunderstood in Chile for so long. For the longest time, it was treated as Merlot, and it gave away so many characteristics that sometimes were not attractive for our palate. They were sometimes a little bit too spicy, it was too green. But now the Carmener's evolved so much that it's just such an elegant and different wine than what it was so many years ago. And for us at Arras de Pirque, the Carmener is a grape that we have to be very careful with, because if it gets too cold, and where we're in, it can get too cold, it'll turn to be very green. So we have to be very intentional with how we approach Carmener. And I think that's why the Albis is such an elegant wine, so beautiful. And what you see there to the right are the Andes. So we're right next to the foot of the Andes.
And again, not every time I say the word value, it has to be like $19 or whatever. But a 2016 9-year-old champion that I would take out to the nicest of occasions and the greatest of opportunities. I think this wine is gorgeous and really in a beautiful spot. That price is crazy. And you know, I'd love to even get some more. So if you guys like it, let me know. Um, this is a beauty. I thank you very much, Claudia, for
Absolutely. No, thank you for
staying up
having
late with
me.
us.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
we're going to be going to Napa Valley at the end of January. I still have one room, so I'm still plugging it because now Karen McNeil is welcoming us. I think McNeil is spelt wrong, but that she's the author of the Wine Bible, and she's going to be welcoming us to the Napa Valley, giving us a little educational session. She's remarkable, and the whole trip is stacked remarkably. If you want a weekend of awesomeness, join us in Napa Valley. I got one room left, whether it's a single or a double. And then we're going to Champaign in November. We've actually already about halfway to full on this trip. So I want to make sure you know about it. And if you're interested in going to Champaign, we start off in Paris. We'll end up in Champaign for a week. The appointments that we have are the best, and they're going to be magnificent. We've got some local experts there that are going to be receiving us and showing us a side of Champagne that few people have ever been able to get that close to. Thank you guys for being here tonight. We hope you enjoyed. We love putting these together, and we couldn't do it without you, Silvio. You're always great. But Claudia, I think you're even a little bit better. So thank you very much.
You can never beat Silvia. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great
Thank
Thank
you,
evening.
you.
Claudia. Thank you for staying up so late.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time. And Lisa and Thomas, great to see you again. Janice, thank you. Teresa, Wendy. See you. I don't want to leave
Happy
anybody off.
January, Ian. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you,
Great job.
Michael. Some of you, Happy New Year. Some of you have said that before, but always great to have you guys here. We'll see you soon and stay safe, everybody. Oh, new Dodger hat. Look at this.
Let's
Oh,
see it.
Lord.
Look at it. It's uh black and
Oh,
blue.
wow.
That I'm trying to will something fantastic. I was hoping all day long I could make a great announcement that maybe we're not going to do anything else, but we we picked up the best reliever in baseball. But I do think there's like one big bat away from making the team where we need to be because some teams got really good this offseason, including the Blue Jays and the Cubs. And the Giants are getting better. So lots of competition, lots of good pitching. It's going to be a great baseball season. 40 days away.
But
I'm
you guys have Otani, right? The Japanese god.
That's right. That's
You
what we
guys will
call him.
be
Yeah.
you'll be more than fine.
You got it. Bye,
Thank you.
Claudia.